I've gotten a good amount of work done today. Once I feel pretty good. And I don't feel like I've slacked off really in particular. I do want to do some more. But, you know, a lot of the time, I feel like, man, I shouldn't be streaming, I shouldn't be playing games. I need to get more translating done, but I've actually done a good amount today. Things are proceeding pretty smoothly. I do still have to pick up the pace, though. We need to get Labyrinth out this year, after all. Well, it would be nice, at least. Anyway. I'm gonna do the usual again today. I can't really read that, unfortunately. I have, like, a guess. I mean... Worship me? I'm amazing? Or is that supposed to be you are incompetent, actually? I see that as, like... Oh, it is. It really is. Really? It's interesting, because... Hold on, I want to check something. Yeah, see the, Hold on. Okay, I see. I'm getting confused. I was getting the third person pronoun for you there confused with, the one that Beatrice actually does use, if I recall, which is... Wada wada. Rather, sorry, no. Wada wa. Wa la wa. The bad enunciation. Which you don't really ever see in modern Japanese. So how does that mean, like, incompetent? Because when I see this, I think of banno in Japanese, which means, like, kind of good at everything, all-rounder, you know? Kind of competent. Interesting. I don't understand a lick of Chinese. Oh, I see. Okay, so it's actually not the kanji I thought it was. Japanese has that too. I think it's this. Yeah, right, yeah. It's the exact same one. I've seen that a couple times. Where have I seen that? I've probably seen Akare written like that by the looks of it. I saw that like a couple times a long, long time ago. Jeez. You're reminding me about stuff I don't remember. You know, I'm realizing, like, I must know a lot of Japanese now because I'm going through the thing that natives go through where, like, I can read kanji just fine, but a lot of the time I have a hard time, like, recalling them from memory because I don't write them very often. Oops. I gotta get back into that sometime, writing again. Okay. So, episode 3, part 2. Didn't get too far in yesterday. The adults were gathered in the dining hall, spending a very long time continuing the discussion that had been started by Beatrice's letter. Ross strongly claimed that the letter was a simple prank, but he couldn't overturn the claim that Kinzo's failure to deny the letter was answer enough. Judging by Kinzo's character, if he knew that the letter had been written in his name, he would be mad with rage. Since all of the siblings knew that, Ross had no choice but to withdraw his claim. So essentially last time, we got on the island. We're having a bit more focus on Ava and, like, her, like, childhood alter ego that she speaks to in her mind. But so far, all that's really happened is the whole thing with Maria giving everyone the letter, which has happened the same as usual. Without even having to summarize it, the contents of the letter were simple. The person who could solve the witch's epitaph would receive the headship and assets. This did a lot of damage to Kraus, who had been sure that he would receive the headship, and was better news than the rest of them. I see. Sorry, I wasn't reading ahead. I was like, how does that make sense? I think it'd be like better news for the rest of them. Then the rest of them, who'd already given up, could have hoped for. Okay. I don't read ahead. However, there were some points that worried them. The person who solved the epitaph was not limited to a member of the Yoshino family. Taken literally, anyone, no matter how doubtful their origin, might receive the headship. And furthermore, this meant that there was a chance that all of the Yoshino family's assets would be stolen by some unknown person. In that sense, it was definitely not a situation where even the other siblings could afford to lower their guard. Had this letter come from an assassin sent by Kinzo, calling themselves Beatrice? Or was this the scheme of some unknown person trying to steal the Yoshimura family's wealth? They still didn't know the truth. Here's the real question. If Professor Layton were here, would he be able to solve this? Would he solve the epitaph and stop the murders? Or would he become a witch? Or something? This feels like it could be a Layton plot. But they could say one thing for certain. Mari had received this problematic letter today on this island. In other words, someone planning something to do with that letter was on this island today. It had been set up by Kinzo, one of the 4 siblings, or maybe some unknown person. No matter how much they suspected each other, they couldn't reach a conclusion. After getting tired of bickering with each other, they finally reached the extremely obvious conclusion that doubting each other was just a waste of time. We've made no progress. I got a cat here on my straw. Too many cats. Too many cats. We've made no progress. We've just been spinning our wheels. That's right. And the mere fact that you've realized it means we won't have to waste any more time. It is not certain that Father sent the letter. My husband is merely exasperated by your inability to hold a conversation. Who isn't able to hold a conversation? You keep yelling at me every time I say something. You truly think that such shameful behavior is fitting for a member of the Ishida family? Would you give it a rest, Eva? You too, Natsuki-san. That topic's finished for now. Shall we all cool our heads off for now? Let's have some cool drinks brought over. That sounds good. It would probably be wiser if we cooled our heads. Don't you want to take a short break too, dear? Aniki looks like she's in a bad mood, so I'll pass on that break. But I agree about the cool drinks. Rosa, have someone bring some water. A whole pitcher. Yes, understood. Rosa headed over to the extension telephone in her corner of the room and called the servant room. She then passed on what Rudolph had told her to the person on the other end. The vicious bickering up until now vanished as though it had been a lie. That silence continued until Goda finished setting the table and retreated from the room. Is there anything else that you require? No. Please leave us. Yes. Then if you will excuse me. If you need anything, call me at any time. After listening to the sound of Goda's footsteps disappear into the distance, everyone took a deep breath at the same time to break the tension. It sure is raining hard. I wonder if this 19th person is taking shelter in the Rose Garden Arbor about now. I wonder. They might be able to escape the rain there, but it would be quite cold. A mysterious 19th person as a visitor. Sounds pretty interesting, just like a mystery novel. Normally, that kind of story, it's a safe bet that the person doesn't exist. That one of us 18 would be faking it. I suspect Genji and the others. Just as I thought, we should have fired all of the servants of the One-Winged Eagle, no matter what excuses we had to make. Come now, don't say that. We must be grateful for the long years of service. Of course, we can't let our guard down. I'm sure you agree too, Nissan, that whether or not Father was behind this, the person who handed Maria the letter was a servant. Indeed. In any event, we are all being friendly in our big happy circle until dinner, weren't we? All the siblings have alibis. Only a servant could have handed Maria that letter. But all the servants said that they were too busy with the bed making to have any spare time during which they could go to Maria-chan in the Rose Garden. Hey, what are you trying to say then? You weren't saying that the Witch of the Forest, Beatrice-sama, came over and actually handed Maria that letter, are you? Haha, Rosa, you used to believe in that so much, it really frightened you, right? Don't tell me you still believe at this age in the Witch of the Forest. If she did exist, I'd love for her to appear. But no matter how much I wished, she didn't appear before me even once. She didn't save me from my crisis. Of course not. I just thought that since all 18 of us said we didn't do it, there might really be a 19th person. That can't be. In the first place, we are the only ones who came in on that boat. We didn't see any mysterious stranger riding with us. You don't think they could have swam across this rough sea, right? I mean, you had the boat captain. Maybe he waited till everyone left from the shore, set the boat to drive away, and then stayed on the island. Wouldn't that be funny? Or maybe another boat crash landed on the island, and we just didn't know about it. Haha, can you imagine? I can't really imagine it. Wahaha. Logically, that's true. Got parachuted down from a plane. I'm just making stuff up now. It is difficult to imagine that there's a single hidden and uninvited guest on this isolated island. However, it looks like some of us still can't abandon the possibility completely, right? Apparently not. Hideyoshi laughed it off, saying that there couldn't be a 19th person, but Kitty had sensitively picked up on the delicate atmosphere among the four siblings. In a normal situation, there shouldn't have been any uninvited guests on this small, isolated island. How would they have come here, and from where, and where were they hiding? And why hadn't they appeared openly, even though they'd sent a letter in their name? Nothing could explain that. But not only had the four siblings not joined in on Hideyoshi's laughing, they also seemed unable to completely deny in their hearts the possibility of a 19th person. Hideyo-san, please don't misunderstand. It's not as though we believe in that fairy tale like Legend of the Witch. Is this another topic to insult Father? Simply speaking, such a thing is a betrayal against him. I wonder. However, this is Father we're talking about. It could be possible, right? I don't know anything. What's this? What's this? Why is everyone gone so gloomy? What are you talking about? In short, the Legend of the Witch isn't a joke, but a fact? That's ridiculous. Of course, nobody really believes in some witch riding a broom flying in the sky. But the woman in that portrait, Beatrice, might really have existed on this island. Hideyoshi-san, it looks like we aren't talking about a witch, but something a little simpler. So, it must be something like this. Everyone suspects that Father had a mistress called Beatrice, secretly living somewhere on this island. Is that it? Father was always exemplary at keeping strictly to the rules. It is completely inconceivable that he would bring something so filthy onto this island. Natsu snapped at them immediately, but it looked like the four siblings, including Kraus, didn't agree. On the contrary, they appeared to think Kenzo wouldn't have even hesitated to do something like that. Hey, Zelda-fan. From the beginning, it had been whispered that Kenzo had built the mansion on this island specifically because of the existence of an entrancing mistress. I'm sorry, Natsu-san. I know how much you respect Dad, but the rumor started a long time ago. He handled the construction of this island entirely on his own. Thank you for the resub, as well. People have always guessed that he had some contraption or secret room set up in this mansion that only he knew about. And it's always been whispered that, hidden somewhere on this island, there's a secret mansion none of us know about. I see. This island might look small on a map, but it's quite large for just the Yoshimura family to live on. So people have suspected that he built a secret mansion, somewhere in the uncivilized forest for his mistress to live in? That would be quite a large-scale scheme. Mansion survival in Minecraft. No, look, he was given creative for like a short time. And the gold is like a command block hidden under the floorboards somewhere in like a secret redstone contraption. And if you find the command block, you get creative. And that's funny how spot on that is. Also, Zelda-fan, maybe you saw my message in the DoD test server. I've asked Uraki if it's okay if I stream DoD potentially. I think he's probably gonna say I can't, but I'm in the mood for a long RPG right now to stream, so I kind of want to slot it in. I know that's a bad idea. I just dropped Labyrinth of 3. Labyrinth 2. Labyrinth 2. Not quite the same game. But I might DoD again in a while. It'd be fun to read things out because no one's seen it before. So I'm gonna wait and see what he says about that. In the beginning, people thought it might be somewhere inside this mansion. That there might be a hidden basement, the fabulous hidden room, where the witch in that portrait was secretly hiding, behind a big Minecraft skull portrait. After seeing that intricate autolock on Dad's study, it isn't too hard to imagine, right? Dad loved redstone. Got all sorts of pressure plates around, he's got piston traps. Yeah, see, the thing is, the word Haishin can mean distribute, or it can mean, like, stream. I specified, video distribute, as in, I said Doga Haishin, which makes it clear I'm talking about a stream. But yeah, he'll understand. Japanese is weird like that. There's a lot of words that mean totally different things like that. After all, Father did spread the rumor that a large amount of gold was hidden somewhere by some mechanism. I would be surprised if there existed some hidden room inside this very mansion that none of us knows about yet. Because you guys haven't tried walking through the paintings. When Mother was alive, she would often scour the entire mansion, searching for Father when he wasn't anywhere to be found. Mother also suspected what Rudolph just said. I'm telling you. Check the paintings. She'll believe there's a hidden door, or stairway somewhere. This blonde-haired mistress was hidden behind it. It's hard to believe, but there are some actual examples in other countries of people cheating with someone over the period of several decades by making them live in a hidden attic room. Really? I heard about that one guy who kept, like, people, I think, in his basement for like 10 years or something, but I've never heard of like this kind of thing. Obviously, I'm referring to like a kidnapping sort of thing. This is very different, but like, wow. Furthermore, Kinzo had imagined this extravagant. It was possible to suspect the existence of a hidden room. Unless Beatrice says I'm mad. From what I've heard, the legend of the Rock Genjica Witch was just a fairy tale made up to scare children away from the uncivilized forest. But it's starting to sound like there's a little more to the story. Well, as you know, this is a lonely island without anything but the Oshimane Mansion on it. When Rose and I were little brats, on stormy nights, we got so scared by the sound of trees rustling in the direction of the forest. We had this crazy delusion that something weird might be looking out at us from between those trees. It's only natural for a brat to think of stuff like that. But when Rose and I complained about it, some people figured it was more than a brat's imagination. Isn't that right, Aniki? Yeah. Nisan and I thought you might have coincidentally spotted Father's mistress, living in secrecy on this island as she went out for a walk when no one was looking. Of course, Mother felt the same. Even among the older servants, you often heard that ghost story about how the Witch of the Portrait wanders the mansion at midnight. Outwardly, I laughed it off as just a ghost story, but on the inside, I suspected very much that it hinted at the existence of a hidden mistress. In that case, you're saying that the existence of a 19th person might not be completely ridiculous? That they might actually be somewhere around here? Sounds like one of those devil's proofs Rudolph saw us talking about. It might be possible to prove that there is a 19th person, but it's impossible to prove that a 19th person doesn't exist. Should we continue this discussion on the assumption that there's a person named Beatrice hiding somewhere on this island? That's a good plan, from the perspective of risk management. It's probably much more prudent to say she might exist, rather than saying she couldn't exist. I see. Sorry, I was a bit careless. Rosa-san, sorry for laughing just now. It's fine. I don't mind. Hideyoshi apologized deeply for taking the worst-case scenario lightly, despite calling himself the president of the company. Presidents are still allowed to apologize. It's okay. Don't feel bad, Hideyoshi. Silence fell again. Yeah, go ahead and start placing bets on who dies in the first Twilight. Preparing for the existence of a 19th person. I mean, it doesn't always have to be adults. We've had servants die in the first Twilight too. We had Shannon die in the first one in the first game, right? And I want to say, I think, was Goda killed then too? Well, I mean, Goda's an adult, sorry. I'm just saying it's not always like the parents that are killed. Mario, Shirley, that'd make things pretty different. We haven't actually, well, I mean, we didn't have any of the children killed off in the first game, but they died in the second one, or at the very least, Jessica did. I guess the others didn't, right? You think it was just Jessica that died in episode 2? Goda's very easy to forget. When I first watched Umineko, I didn't know the difference between Goda and Genji. So, yeah. It took me a bit to realize, hey, these aren't the same person. It's like kind of nondescript older men. But you gotta realize, like, one is, like, much older than the other. Preparing for the existence of a 19th person would mean, in effect, acknowledging the presence of some unknown person hidden on this island. And since this person might be planning something shady, it was only natural that the conversation would turn in an ominous direction. Yeah, it's easy to forget that Genji has the knife thing. But if you can remember that fact, like, that one scene makes him pretty distinct, actually. I like Genji, he's cool. In the past, Father would sometimes suddenly disappear without telling anyone where he went. After all, he is a man who values silence. It wouldn't have been out of the ordinary for him to shut himself up in some library room after purposely not telling anyone where he was going. However, when the witch theory was slowly refined into the theory about his mistress, people eventually whispered that he was secretly going back and forth to see her. Mom was totally paranoid in her last years. She'd sometimes suddenly start making a fuss, asking the servants to start looking for Dad immediately because of some urgent situation. Yes, that did happen sometimes. Mother was always doing things like that in her later years, and that frightening atmosphere still wasn't going away. I can say it for certain now. She was a person to be pitied. So then, what happened with those large-scale searches of the house? Did they find anything? No. Father wasn't caught foolishly in a room even once. Always, after a long time had passed, he would suddenly show up somewhere. Then he'd say that he'd taken a nap in some library room, or that the wind had summoned him to take a walk on the beach. But it was always some place where the servants had already looked. We never knew where father had gone. Even at that time, grandfather was famous for his occult inclinations. So some of the servants exaggerated, saying that he might have turned into butterflies and danced around the rose garden. So in short, father frequently disappeared, and no one knew where he went. Yeah, since we couldn't find him no matter how much we looked inside the mansion, we got more and more sure that dad might have been somewhere outside. But the area outside the mansion isn't large at all, which leaves only the forest. And if you tie that in with the legend of the witch, you'd a theory like this. Father actually built a hidden mansion somewhere in the forest, inside of which a mistress by the name of Beatrice lived, and he sometimes went to see her. I was also young at the time. I was so eager to find where father was having his affair that, at one time, I followed him when he went outside. Of course, it was a failure. Every time father went out, he was oddly intent on avoiding places where he might be seen, and he was extremely careful to prevent anyone from spotting him. And he was extraordinarily earnest in his attempts to do so, but that actually made me sure. He must have been going out for some reason that the members of the family couldn't know about. Could MatPat solve Umineko? You mean like before the end of it? With like maybe the first 4 VNs? I'm trying to think. I will say, okay, so later on in either episode 3 or 4, Beatrice is going to say something about her motive. But she's not going to say what it was. Beatrice's motive has already been stated. But for someone to have picked up on that, because it's a very one-off line that you skirt right over for really, really good reason. But it is said. It's literally one line. And later on in, like, good God, episode 8, I think, maybe, it's gonna get addressed again. And you're gonna be like, wait, seriously? No way. Umineko is gonna go places you might not expect. In fact, places you definitely won't expect. And I'd be going to meet his mistress. Probably trying to avoid being seen. I think MatPat would come to the wrong conclusion. Because there are a lot of characters that potentially have motives. You could pin it on anyone here because they want money, for example. You know? And I will say this. I watched a very long, very interesting theory video. Okay, I'm gonna say this. There is an official explanation of Umineko that the manga makes clear, and that the VN almost entirely makes clear. But there is room for interpretation left, and the author, in the VN, makes sure to never outright say, this is the truth that happened. So there's this like 10-hour-long theory video that someone has re-uploaded. The original author isn't on YouTube anymore. A very, very good watch. I might stream it and like watch and talk about it after I'm done with Umineko because it's really incredible. It's wrong, but he managed to make a 10-hour theory about the wrong culprit, and it's damn convincing. So I think if anything, MatPat might come to that kind of conclusion without having the full story. And here's the thing. This guy who made the video does have the full story. All the VNs were up by then. But his theory in his mind had so much evidence that he was convinced that the author misdirected everyone with the finale of Umineko. And honestly, I could see it. I don't know. I don't know what to think of the manga. I've never read the manga. I don't know if you're supposed to take it as anything said or shown in the manga is supplementary and should be added on. Is it another interpretation? Is it a retelling that doesn't necessarily have to line up with the VNs? Because last time I watched that 10-hour video, I was convinced. I was convinced that the wrong person was behind all this. I can't wait until I can actually talk about this in depth. Someday we'll get there. We will. After seeing Hideyoshi nod and say yes, yes, as though this was quite obvious, Eva got a little sullen. Well, anyway, this island was like a sketchbook in which Father, with his Western obsession, could draw out all of his dreams. Everything about this island was exactly how Father wanted it. It wouldn't be odd at all if there was a hidden mansion somewhere for his mistress to live in. It's going to be good to watch the theory video after we're done anyway, because here's the thing. Umineko has a lot of rules as to how things are governed. It'll kind of get into those rules later on, but the video does a great job at spelling out these rules and laying down, like, the foundation of what Umineko is, and how you're supposed to read each scene, essentially. The video essentially goes over all the kind of vague parts. I mean, I know that Nox's rules aren't exclusive to Umineko, and I don't mean Nox's rules now. We're not gonna talk about Nox's rules until, like, I think episodes 5 and 6, basically. Then, Nox's rules aren't gonna shut the fuck up. But it's okay, because we get some really cool characters related to Nox's rules. You're gonna love them. Ronald. I can't wait. Abe's words spoke for what all the siblings had come to think. For a while, the room returned to silence again, and everyone listened to the sound of the wind and rain. Was there a hidden mansion at this island, and had Kinza's mistress been living there in hiding for a long, long time? Everyone thought they were being too suspicious, and they hesitated for a long time without speaking. But everyone shared a common opinion. Start placing bets now. Is there a hidden mansion on the island, or is this just a red herring theory? Start guessing. Kirie, who'd been listening the whole time with her eyes closed, spoke to no one in particular. How long has this rumor about Father's mistress been around? As soon as we moved to this island, about 30 years ago. After all, it probably would have been impossible for him to have a hidden mansion built while we were here. Yeah, Real, be careful to, like, not spoil anything. You can guess at stuff that you don't know. What if you already know, then? Shh. Yeah, sorry, Yuzu. I've been streaming weird hours again. Oh, well. People materials would have to be going in and out. It would have been exposed quickly. So if that was possible, it happened before we moved here. It probably could have been built along with this mansion when we were still living in Otomata. Since Father had to set up a double life with his family as a mistress, it's probably reasonable to assume that he had it all planned from the beginning. And his relationship with that mistress probably went back to the days when he lived in Otomata. Probably. If, as Father says, she's the source of the vast amount of gold he used to gain the funds that resurrected the Ushina family, we could probably conclude that they had a close relationship since Otomata. A relationship trusting enough for her to land him a vast quantity of gold. I can't even imagine how old that relationship must have been. Perhaps Father gave her some kind of valuable advice for succeeding in the business. It's natural to think that, out of a sense of gratitude for that, this person gave Father the gold. That is ridiculous. If you think about it that way, it's obvious that they would have a close relationship after that. I mean, I guess I could see it like, if you convince someone to buy 100 Bitcoin back when they were fresh, they might give you a couple Bitcoin down the line 10 years later or something, as gratitude if you weren't a pinch and needed it, right? Rather than a festering relationship with the mistress, it was probably a relationship of gratitude to the person who saved the Ushina family from its crisis. I don't know if what Natsu-san's saying has a ring of truth to it or not, but even in that case, isn't building a hidden mansion and having to live in it going a bit too far? Doesn't that mean they felt something a bit more than gratitude? Well, this is all just speculation. In the first place, no one's ever found that hidden mansion. Aniki, you were planning on expanding this island into a resort, right? As you were doing that, you didn't manage to stumble on it by chance, did you? Maybe you even bumped into some gold there, too. Do you think Rokenjima is Treasure Island or something? Don't play dumb. We know that, although you say you're opening a resort. You have really been planning to investigate the entire island, right? Judging by all that trouble and confusion we were talking about earlier, you haven't been very successful, have you? I don't know what you're talking about, but it's a misunderstanding. Isn't it perfectly natural that investigating this island would be the first step in turning it into a resort? Ross tried to play dumb, but it was plainly obvious to his siblings who knew him so well. Ross was definitely sure of the existence of a hidden mansion. And under the pretense of opening a resort, he had been closely investigating the island, searching for clues to the location of the hidden gold. They couldn't tell whether the conviction was just him overthinking things, or whether it was based on some physical proof. Still, if Kraus, with all his guile, was sure, That was enough proof for the other siblings to be sure, too. The story about a witch living in the forest is obviously a fairy tale, but the story about some blonde-haired girl living secretly in a mansion no one knows about in the middle of the forest isn't much better. That's right. That really would be just like a fairy tale. You like those, don't you, Rosa? Huh? Well, when the mansion was built on this island, Father was at the height of his prosperity. With his money, he could probably obtain anything, make any of his wild imaginings real. A mansion in the forest where a witch quietly waits. Sounds like the kind of situation Father would like. Doesn't it? Like something from the occult, or a fairy tale. Feels like Dad's kind of hobby. And this island, on which the Ushimura family had lived for 30 years now, a hidden mansion that no one knew about had quietly been built to house a witch, about whom nothing was known except what could be guessed from a portrait. Even this hastily thrown together theory might not be completely delusional, considering all of Kinzo's strange habits and his vast wealth. Not off now. It might not have been impossible for Father to build a hidden mansion to satisfy his dreams. However, let's be realistic. Would it be possible to house his beloved woman in that hidden mansion for decades without it becoming inconvenient? Well, if there was love, it could have been doable, right? Think of the facilities needed to let his beloved woman live healthily, and in a way that would satisfy Father. For example, even if it was on a small scale, it would have to be an intricate and pleasant residence. And it would probably need to have electricity, gas, and running water maintained, as well as some people to see to her needs. Even cooking would be quite difficult. She would need clothes and makeup, the daily necessities. The needs of a woman aren't simple. Would it be possible to maintain all that without any of the family or the servants noticing? When you say it that way, it sure sounds like a weak point in our theory. But that isn't enough to get rid of my feeling that Dad might have been able to do it anyway. After all, it's Dad we're talking about. That's right. It's our father. If Father wanted to succeed in an endeavor, he would succeed no matter what. Saying that something would be difficult for a normal person, and therefore impossible, doesn't apply when it comes to Father. Indeed, you should never underestimate Father. Father's madness can't be understood by normal people. I wouldn't put it past that Kinzo. As long as you stick to the sprays, a considerable amount of credibility can dwell in any absurd story. However, that didn't cause the importance of what Kitty has said to waver. This was different from stealthily raising a kitten in a cardboard box and keeping a secret from your parents. Taking care of a person in secret over a period of 30 years would be an incalculably massive task. After all, Father's Legend of the Gold started before he gained possession of Kenjima. That means his relationship with his mistress was over 30 years long. How old would that make her? In the worst case, she could be as old as us or older, right? At that age, the body starts to break down. I don't care what the mansion's like. I wouldn't use the word agreeable to describe living in a place where people's eyes can't reach, almost like she was under house arrest. That's right. If what Father told us about Beatrice is true, then that relationship has lasted for over 30 years. She might have been a charming young woman at the time, but it probably makes sense to assume she's an old bag like us now. I can easily imagine that, given the contents of that letter. You should talk. Grass laughed as if none of this applied to him. Of course, Ava was offended, but she didn't strike back. Quit it, Aniki. So if everything we're thinking's true, then she should be joining in on Dad's inheritance problem with her head held high. After all, there's a good chance their love is mutual, unlike with Mom. Even if she knows she's his mistress, she might also be proud to be his true wife. That is an insult to Mother. Yeah, sorry. However, everyone knows that it was a political marriage decided on by the elders among his relatives. Because of that, it definitely wouldn't be strange for Dad to have a mistress. The family sank after the Great Kanto earthquake, and Father was set up as the Ushimura family head against his will. However, in the beginning, the elder relatives treated Kinzo like a dummy and influenced him powerfully, almost like he was a puppet. He wasn't permitted to decide anything by himself, not even his marriage partner. Ever since he met that golden witch Beatrice in those distant days, Kinzo's Legend of the Gold was quickly embellished into something dramatic. In other words, it could mean that Kinzo really did find a woman he loved. If she also knew the whole story, even if they weren't marriage partners, it wouldn't have been odd for her to consider herself his true wife inside her heart. And now, the person registered as his true wife was already dead. Which means she might feel confident staking her claim, not just for the rights to his assets, but regarding the battle over the headship too. I see. I'm starting to see the purpose of this letter. The headship goes to the one who solves the riddle of the epitaph. Is that what it means? Even if that mistress was added into the family ranking system, She isn't a direct relative of father, so she'd be inferior even to the children. In other words, she'd be one step below Rosa in rank. That wouldn't be a good position to enter the battle for the headship from. I see, so that's it. If someone can solve the witch's riddle, they'll get the headship regardless of rank. In other words, it's the most advantageous condition Beatrice could possibly get, since she's got no chance otherwise. The revival of the Ushimura family was made possible by the gold Beatrice had bestowed. That was quite a distinguishing service she'd provided. She'd built that wealth together with Kinzo, so it was natural that she would think of herself as the one who should inherit it. It would also be natural for her to despise the thought of giving it up to the children of the wife Kinzo never loved. How could she be so impudent? Even if such a mistress actually exists, joining another battle for the rights to the head's inheritance would be a reckless action far above her place. What disregard for her own position? Natsuki turned red, her fist quivering. She had also come into the Ushimura register due to complicated circumstances. Those who knew that understood more or less why she was so angry for the sake of Kinzo's dead wife. Well, thanks to that reckless action of hers, we all have an even chance now, right? Father has even given it his silent approval. Will the person who succeeds the Ushimura family be his Mistress Beatrice, or one of us, the relatives he doesn't love? Maybe he wants to make us struggle over that to see who's worthy. As Eva giggled roguishly, Koro shrugged his shoulders and looked away. However, since she's the one who brought this rule to light in the first place, maybe that means it gives her a significant advantage. That's right. In the first place, if Beatrice meant that letter literally, then she's father's alchemist. In other words, she's the manager of his gold. Wouldn't be strange at all if she knew where it was hidden, would it? Isn't that harsh? Oh, we got the mystery music. It's like she's giving us a riddle she knows the answer to. She'll probably show up rudely, say, "Hey, here's the answer. I'll take the headship now," and snatch everything away from us. That's right. The person who brings up a riddle always knows the answer. No, this one isn't Fishy Aroma. Fishy Aroma is a very different song. There's a good chance that this is all trapped to steal everything from us. I don't know which one this is, though. There's too many songs in Umineko. I probably know the names of like less than 10. If you think about it like that, don't you start to doubt whether she really had any gold in the first place? Why would she tell us about it? All she has to do is keep quiet and embezzle it. It really is strange. That certainly was the case. If the epitaph showed the way to the hidden gold, why would she challenge them to try and solve it? If they actually did solve it, wouldn't the gold all be stolen from her? Could it be that this person was trying to stir the siblings up so they'd solve the epitaph, and then plan to steal it away at the last second? How do you just steal tons of gold? It was an extremely logical possibility. No, if you spin the chessboard around, there might be a pretty good chance that they actually do have the gold. Why are you so certain? Wait, Anaki. Kide, please keep talking. You're the only smart one here. Why do you think that? After all, do they really think we'll let go of the Ushimura family headship? Just because someone tells us the answer to the riddle in the witch's epitaph? That will be so impressed by their answer that we'll just give up? Well, that's true. No way they're so naive that they assumed we'd just give up after being told the answer to a riddle. That we'd just say, "Here you go," and hand it over. Of course, the headship of the Ushimura family is not something that can be handed over so easily. That's it exactly. No matter how Beatrice might one-sidedly propose a game like this, even if she were to spectacularly show us the answer, there's no way we'd obediently hand over the headship. In other words, unless she has a compelling force, in the form of challenging us to a game with equal conditions for us all, this won't truly count as a game. Murder's pretty compelling. You're right. Unless the losers have no choice but to give up on the headship because of a compelling force, this won't really count as a game. What might this compelling force be? Will they bind us in chains and threaten us into handing over the headship? I see. I get it. They just have to do something to make us want to give up the headship willingly. Yes, I see. To do that, Beatrice would have to own 10 tons of gold. I see, I get it too. In other words, it's a trade? Huh? What do you mean? A trade? Trade what? The Ushimura family headship for the hidden gold. Beatrice surely plans to tell us the location of the 10 tons of gold, and use that as a bribe to gain the Ushimura family headship. Ridiculous. They want to trade the headship of the glorious Ushimura family for money? That's blasphemy. Hey, I'd do it. Blasphemy against the Ushimura family. Please listen without getting mad. about how much wealth does this Goyasu Shimada family have right now. Are we really that affluent? The definition of affluence is not dependent on property. It is about heart. Our financial situation has nothing to... Krause interrupted Natsui as she started to go on and on emotionally. In this situation, the more she went on like that, the worse it would actually sound. Honestly, kinda. Me aside, I hear your current situations are quite unfavorable. Oh really? I've heard that your financial situation's really bad too. Offering up more and more as collateral for new money to gamble with. Repeatedly dabbling in new gambles, unable to accept your losses. If we count what's going on behind the scenes, you're in even bigger financial straits than the rest of us. Just how much money have you lost, Nissan? You have no talent. You are incompetent. Who are you saying has no talent? And what do you mean, financial straits? Natsui became indignant once more, but Krause raised his hand again and interrupted her. It seems you were making a small mistake. Business is not something that can be judged based on current progress alone. For someone with a long-term outlook on business such as myself, it may sometimes appear at a glance that I've suffered significant short-term losses. Aniki, we've been collecting evidence. Your position right now isn't one to be proud of. So this is what Kitty is trying to say. Every one of us has got money trouble, and Beatrice has 10 tons of gold. As the only person who knows the location of the 10 tons of gold, Beatrice is planning on using it to force us to sell the headship. But how much is 10 tons of gold worth? At a rough estimate, let's say 2 billion yen? No, 20 billion yen. With that much piled up, we'd be ecstatic to accept her as the successor. The scene returned to silence. In fact, the wind and rain felt even noisier now. It was probably the sound of the windstorm racing through the insides of their minds. This isn't funny. To think we'd give up the headship to some woman of doubtful origin. Just because she had a little money stored up. A little money? A little money, huh? Don't be stupid. The headship wasn't even yours in the first place, right? We've got nothing to lose and money to gain. I'll have to calculate our profit and loss, but it's something worth listening to. They knew that Krause had eaten up much of the Ushimura family's assets. So it was dregs that remained of that inheritance, versus the cost of being accepted as the head that Beatrice would pay. Hey, don't knock things over. It was a shame, but honestly, the former was less enticing than the latter. Well, it probably wouldn't end up as 4 equal portions. Since Aniki would be giving up his position of successor, his portion would have to be larger. Makes me feel kind of jealous, you know? Dear, the amount of money isn't the problem, right? Your cowardly younger siblings are trying to sell the glory of the Ushimura family for money. Don't you see? Why aren't you displaying your dignity as the oldest son? Natsuhi, stay quiet for a while. Ooh. Dear? This is a dizzying proposal. We reached planning on getting 250 million yen out of Aniki. If the witch treats us with 10% of those 10 tons, that's 2 billion. Yeah. 10% of 20 million. How did he succeed in business? Oh, right, he's not. Yeah, what? What? Hey. Hey, you're going nuts. You're going nuts, cat. What are you doing? Oh. 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 Yeah, that means she's treating us with 10 times our original goal. That alone would be more than enough for us. It's not like I've got any attachment to the Ushimura name. I'd be happy to sell it off. Even if 10 tons is a slightly optimistic figure, yes, it'd still be a fascinating prospect for us. We were trying to form an alliance among the siblings to kick this outsider called Beatrice out. But if this is her plan, it'll tear apart the unity between us. Yeah, by this point we can state it clearly. The goal of Beatrice's letter was to disturb our alliance. Ta-da! If the 3 younger siblings, who never had anything to do with the inheritance, were paid enough money to satisfy them, they would happily accept Beatrice as the next head. A moat had been dug all around Krause. In that case, the negotiations would be one-on-one between her and Krause. He tried to look strong, but Krause's financial and political situation was extremely weak. He might bluff in front of his siblings, but on the inside, he was considering entering negotiations, depending on the sum of money involved. In order to bury his losses, Krause had taken advantage of the fact that Kinzo had shut himself up in his room and had embezzled Kinzo's personal assets. Therefore, when Kinzo died and the inheritance was distributed, Krause's situation would probably be investigated. But if he gave up his seat as the head to Beatrice, she would also receive rights to the assets. No, not yet. They're saying, theoretically, when Kinzo died, would be investigated in the future. And as a result, the distribution of the inheritance to the siblings would not occur. No one's died yet this route, see? Look, everyone's still alive. We're good. Happily ever after. For the next maybe half an hour. In other words, Krause's embezzlement might not have been made known to the other siblings. Might not have to be made known. Of course, the siblings were frightened of Kinzo, but it was doubtful whether they still actually respected him as a father. By this time, they each had their own families, their own wealth, and their own lives. If they were paid enough money in exchange for Rokenjima, the wreckage of Kinzo's dreams, there was a significant likelihood that they'd relinquish the Yoshimura family name. In other words, Beatrice's victory was already guaranteed in this game. Not as the winner of Beatrice's game, but as the winner of Kinzo's game. Kinzo once ordered that the epitaph be put on display, and until today, no one had solved it. So Beatrice solved it. In other words, this is less of a game, and more like Beatrice's declaration of victory. However, Kirie still thought there might be a catch. If this was a declaration of victory, Beatrice would only have to display the gold openly and state her intent to buy the inheritance. And yet, she'd gone to all this trouble telling the siblings to try and solve the epitaph. Why did she set up this new game, where she agreed to hand over all the gold and hand the inheritance to the epitaph solver? Kirie tried spinning the chessboard around several times. She searched for the sort of ideal strategy Beatrice might be after, something that could lead to this kind of thinking. In the end, she reached a single conclusion. Could it be arrogance? Or maybe she's playing? What are you talking about? The witch sent us a letter of challenge, forcing us to try and solve the epitaph. She might be taking us lightly, thinking we could never solve it. However, at the very least, there ought to be an extremely small chance that we do solve it. After all, we have here 4 father's children by blood, right? The questioner called together 4 blood relatives, who, if they tried to frantically work together and to avoid having those assets stolen from them, might come across the answer to the riddle by chance. Honestly, the non-blood relatives here, this one in particular, smarter than most of the blood relatives. You can't see my mouse, but I'm drawing circles around Kirie's face. These 2 here are the smartest adults here in this room. Definitely these 2. The reason the witch had a superior position in negotiations compared to the siblings was that only she knew the location of the hidden gold. But if that hiding place was exposed to someone other than her, the witch's advantage would crumble. In short, Beatrice gains nothing but risk by writing this witch's letter of challenge. Of course, it might have had the effect of splitting apart the siblings' alliance. But if that was her only goal, why would she take this risk, however slight it might be? That seems reckless to me. But if we keep in mind a certain type of emotion, the risk becomes comprehensible. And you're saying it's arrogance? Yes, that's right. When people have an overwhelming advantage, they tend to get arrogant. And when they do, they want to show off that advantage to the losers, so they sometimes take on small risks. A moderate amount of risk adds a little spice to the joy of victory. It'd be boring to win without any risk. I understand. I like that kind of thing too. Yeah, I understand it well. I thought of a few plausible explanations for the true motive behind Beatrice's letter, but I think this really might be the truth. The emotion hidden behind that letter was arrogance. Arrogance. She's trying to throw her weight around, looking down on us as if there's no way we could figure out such a difficult epitaph. It might even be possible, if surprising, that the epitaph wasn't written by father, but by her. Sounds great. Solve the riddle of the epitaph, she says. If only I solved it, I would be made the head, right? I'll solve it. I'll accept the witch's challenge. As if those other idiot siblings could solve it. I'll solve it by myself, and then I'll prove that I'm the one who's fit to succeed the Yoshimura family. Someone actually to try to solve it? That girl is past Ava. That is childhood Ava. Her alter ego born by Kinzo and Krause's sexism that basically she was treated poorly as a child even though she was like the most successful sibling. And why is Ava insane? Look, Ava's been through a lot of trauma that you don't know about, okay? Forgive Ava here. Look, she like had better grades and everything than Kraus as a kid. She wasn't allowed to go to college. Kraus essentially just was a slacker who did nothing. But he was given the title of headship just because he was the firstborn son. And Ava got the short end of the stick because she was born a girl. So Ava essentially split into two. Like, here we have, like, Ava who kind of, like, gave up on her ambitions of becoming, like, the head by, like, outperforming Kraus. And decided to just become a mother. And used George to kind of get back at Kraus. Because, you know, George was born first. So, and also he's a guy, so he out succeeds Jessica as the term, like, as the sense of, like, the Nets tag there. And yeah, childhood Ava, who still, like, is stubbornly trying to, like, just do her best to outdo Kraus. You'll see. I'll take that challenge. I will solve the riddle. Do it. She did it. 9 PM on the first day already. Give us a Battler and Beatrice scene. Come on. Turn my mouth. Yes. Not her Hodol. So she's not a witch, but a mistress named Beatrice who lived on the island. So there can be more than 18 people, which means I can defeat the line of reasoning that says any crime impossible for all 18 people must involve magic. That's a big scoop. Hi, Ronove. Pardon me. Battler-sama, would you like some black tea and cookies? Beato's butler, who called himself Ronove, appeared out of nowhere. I believe this song is Fishy Aroma, by the way. A plate set on a silver tray that he held was filled with delicious-looking, steaming black tea and cookies. I really don't like this guy's smile. For some reason, it doesn't look like a smile used to warmly greet a guest. Feels like he's mocking me somehow. I don't know if he really takes me for an idiot, or if it's just a joke or something, but it's really irritating me. I don't need any. I'm busy now. Leave me alone. Oh my. Such a shame. And the cookies were so delicious too. Cooked so wonderfully, they would be wasted on mere human. Only someone I'd feel like it. Just set it down somewhere and get out of here. Will that be acceptable? Then I shall do so. You may eat them when they get cold and stale, and then regret to the fullest that you did not eat them while they were fresh. You really are annoying. Well, you're a lot better than Beato, who keeps doing that creepy cackle right next to my ear. Yes, that is quite true. There are times when my lady's laughter becomes quite undignified. Every time I hear it, I find it painful to comprehend why such a noble demon as myself must serve such a master. Cuckoo. Man, you're weird. If you don't like it, couldn't you just not work for her? And yet, to continue serving is furniture's joy. If we do not serve, we would hardly be furniture. Setting that aside, how has the game been proceeding? Just now, you seem to have found some useful information that quite pleased you. Well now, I wonder what your shallow wit has conjured up. As Ronove mocked me and giggled, he followed my earlier words literally and placed the black tea and cookies in a random spot nearby. In any case, it appears you are now more confident in the existence of an 18th person, yes? Would you be gracious enough to allow me to hear your opinion? Oh, here we go. Your time. Yeah, sure. Talk it out. I'm just going to say it again in front of Beato anyway. No reason to hide it. Basically, it looks like there's a hidden mansion somewhere on this island, and that grandfather had his mistress living there. So the question that's been torturing me about whether there are 18 or 19 people can't be easily resolved. You have driven yourself into a corner because of the dead end that you yourself have created. Even though you deny the witch, Battler-sama, you hold a double standard and refuse to accept that the culprit is one of the 18. The easiest way to deny the witch would be to suspect one of the 18. It isn't easy to gather alibis for every one of them. I always find at least one person with a fragile alibi. I could probably continue to deny the witch forever if I just used that person as a scapegoat. However, I refuse to do that. It's useless, it's all useless. Every one of those 18 people is either a parent, a relative, or a cousin to me. Or a servant? And those are reliable servants who are sometimes serious and sometimes fun to be with. I won't let myself use any one of them as a scapegoat. Just use Goda, you just met him. You don't give a shit about Goda, just pin it on Goda. In the past, my resolve wavered. That's how Beato hit me where my heart was weak. Accepting and understanding one's own weaknesses, or canon. You didn't know canon until, like, the first day either. Goda's even easier, though. It is not something that can often be accomplished. Battler-sama, you use this theory about a 19th person as a spear. Or should I say, shield. In any event, in contrast to how unprepared you were in the previous games, the fact that you now have a compass bearing on how to fight is a dramatic leap forward, let us say. With this, you can suspect the 19th person and pursue your theory that the culprit is a human, without having to doubt any of the 18 you love and respect. Strange how it's this easy this time, isn't it? Almost like Battler's being set fuck up. That's it exactly. Like in the first game, when Naku was killed in the boiler room, there were plenty of tricks I could have mentioned without hesitation, as long as the 19th person existed. In the very first game, Naku was killed in the boiler room. One might think he was attacked by Kumasawa-san, who had gone down into the boiler room with him, or maybe that someone who'd appeared to be dead earlier was actually faking it and ambushed him. Either way, it was a move that forced me to suspect one of the 18. However, by simply proposing that the 19th person existed, there was no longer any need to suspect one of the 18 for that murder in the boiler room. In short, I can at least deny the line of reasoning saying that if something's possible for every one of the 18, therefore the culprit is a witch. Using this argument, it's easy to explain, for example, the problematic case that has already occurred in this game. Who gave Mario the letter? Even if all 18 people have alibis, I could easily explain everything by saying that the 19th person must have visited her and given her the letter. I say that's quite a good move. Now, how would I strike back against it? You still have plenty of weak points, even if you are aware of them. Maybe the 18-person attack would be an effective move. To judge the strength of your defense, it may be amusing to contest the point again. And how will you do it, Demon Butler? I believe it would be appropriate to ambush the piece representing this 19th person that you mentioned. Butler-sama, you've never met this 19th person, yes? Would you please show some proof that that 19th person exists? And naive. Of course, I knew you'd probably try that move. My. Please respond to it. Witches and demons and the like. There's no more fitting move for you guys to use. It's one of those devil's proofs. When you try to make some claim to humans like us, we always counterattack by telling you to show some proof. Because that's a human move. I'm fighting with a witch. I'm taking part in a battle with someone who isn't human. And some moves exist that can only be used in a game against a witch. They're cheap moves, and that's what this devil's proof is. Because it's impossible to prove. Let's assume that there's a hidden mansion on Akenjima, separate from the Ushimura family mansion, and that a woman named Beatrice lives there. In order to prove this, one must find this mansion and actually bring Beatrice out of it. That's called actual proof in the human world. However, if we follow the rules of the devil's proof, you can't deny that she exists, even if there's no proof that she does, because it's impossible to prove that something doesn't exist. That's right, I'm finally able to turn the tables using this devil's proof, which tormented me so much before. Those guys were always trying to force me to accept the existence of the witch with it. After all, it was physically impossible for me to show any proof that witches don't exist, and deny Beato's claims. That's why I kept getting hit with a reckless argument that witches do exist, and wasn't able to counterattack. Yeah, really, he's just like learning to use their own tools against him. It's good. It's naive, but it's good. And that's why I'll spin the chessboard around right now. If I can't disprove the existence of witches, then that means, if I suggest that a 19th human exists, you can't deny that either. In other words, because this problematic and mysterious mistress is craftily hiding herself, it'd be perfectly natural if you never found her, no matter how hard you looked. So you can't say that your ability to find this 19th person proves that she doesn't exist. Therefore, it's impossible to deny the 19th person's existence. Beato used the devil's proof to make denying her own existence impossible, but this time it's become a weapon. If we can get away with this argument, then forget just a 19th person. This island could be full of people we don't know about. Even if there were 10 or 100 of them, she still couldn't deny that they existed. In the last game, the one before that, among the murder scenes that showed up, there were several that were extremely intricate and must have taken a lot of effort to set up. It's really hard to imagine a single culprit setting up all those. However, if not just a 19th person, but 10 or 100 people were hidden somewhere, an entire-ass cult, there wouldn't be any problem at all. If they all split up the work, they could handle any job in a short period of time. Of course, doubts will naturally arise as to whether a large group of people like that could sneak around the mansion without being noticed. But those are all settled by the devil's proof. It's really like, I imagine all the people just showing up out of the woodwork and painting, like, the mnemonic circles within 5 minutes is like how a big group of Amish people can just raise a barn in one night. I'm just got a picture of that. You can't deny that even 100 people were there just because they weren't seen or noticed. Someone just stood in the corner and closed their eyes. I saw nothing. Even though I'm saying it myself is such a stupid argument that it makes me want to throw up. However, because it's such a dirty move, it's a perfect one to use against a witch. Well, this is just my imagination. But what if about 100 suspicious men wearing goat masks were hiding in the shadows? Something like that's worse than laughable. Almost like they're cockroaches. If you see one, it means there's 100 more hiding somewhere. Well, I do think it's a ridiculous argument that's horribly twisted. If my opponent were human, I'm sure they'd yell at me like I was out of my mind. But my opponent is a witch, and after all, that's the kind of competition we're having, isn't it? I'll use any kind of reckless argument to explain it using humans and deny the witch. Anyway, with this move, I don't have to doubt any of the 18 who are close to me again. I won't suffer defeat like last time again. I see. You've learned from your previous defeat. That is good. It's no surprise that you become so devious now that you're in your third game. You first strengthen your own defense. That is truly a solid first step. What a spectacular move, I would say. Well, even if we do assume that there's a 19th person, there's still a few tricks left that I can't resolve, like the actual number of master keys, no matter how many humans I add. Still, it isn't bad as a first step for the time being. Valor-sama, your trump card is the important piece called the 19th person. You encountered my move of asking what the proof was by using the devil's proof. A good skirmish. Although I must apologize for making a move by myself when my lady isn't here, I find that I, too, am growing slightly interested. I wonder if you'll allow me to make yet another move on my lady's behalf? Ready. Let's have it. I've got no shortage of opponents, be they witches or demons. This move you presented called the Devil's Proof. It's a specialty of us demons, but there are also various other moves available to us. Do you know of a move called Hempel's Raven? Hempel's Raven? What are you talking about? Ahahaha. Just then, that enraging laugh I've heard so many times started echoing. I like that she immediately wears this face upon entering the room. The room was filled with dazzling golden butterflies, and in the center of that whirlwind, the Golden Witch appeared. If it isn't my lady, good morning. I thought you might be doing something interesting while I was away. Hempel's Raven, was it? Such a familiar old move I could almost laugh. To think the day has come when I get to show it off to Battler. It's a classic move to use against a Devil's Proof. Runabe, I will make this move. Do not get in the way of my fun. So you've finally shown up, you guffawing witch. I see you're laughing like a freak just as usual. This guy was talking behind your back just now, telling me how undignified you look when you do that, right? How rude. Is that true? Nonsense. Why would I speak such gossip about my lady, whom I regard with such sincere respect? I can't believe you'd say something so shameless. Doesn't look like we'll be getting along well together. Well, that is fine. Let us return to the point at hand. Hempel's Raven is used to show actual proof during the contrapositive. In other words, it is a move like this. What must you do to prove that ravens are black? Huh? What are you talking about? Prove that ravens are black? Wouldn't you just have to catch a raven and check to see if it's black? That's right. You must simply prove that a raven equals black. Do you see that if you instead prove that birds that aren't black equals not ravens? You would reach the same argument. If you go throughout the world and examine all birds that are not ravens, and prove that none of them are black, then as a result, you can claim that, therefore, black birds are ravens. This is called an argument by the contrapositive. Is that too difficult for you? Yeah, no kidding. I've got no idea what you're saying, it is kind of weird. Valor-sama, what about this example? Let us say that you have two boxes, and one of them is a winner, with a cookie inside. Of course, the other one is a loser and is empty. For example, here are two boxes, where one has a cookie inside and means you win, while the other is empty and means you lose. At this moment, it has a cookie inside equals you win, which implies that you do not win, it had no cookie inside. When such a relationship exists, the latter is called the contrapositive. When if A then B is true, then if not B, then not A is also true. Okay. Well, that's obvious. If the one you guessed was the loser, then you'd automatically know that the other one was the winner. In other words, if you choose the box at random, whether it's the winner or the loser, you'll be able to figure out which box has the cookie in it after your first move. This only really counts like if someone tells you the rules beforehand, like if you know that ravens exist, or you know that blackbirds exist, or if you know there's two boxes, one has a cookie and one doesn't. That is correct. If the cookie is in the box you open, then the devil's proof is satisfied. You can directly prove that this box is the winner equals this box has a cookie in it. However, if the box you open is empty, then the reverse, Hempel's Raven, is satisfied. In other words, this box does not have a cookie in it equals this box isn't the winner. And as long as we accept the premise that there are no more than 2 boxes, the contrapositive shows that the other box is automatically the winner. Well, I think I'm starting to see your reasoning. Only poison can stop poison, and only twisted logic can stop twisted logic. Then what? How does that overturn my claim that, because there's definitely 19th human hidden on this island, even if all 18 people have alibis, I still won't have to accept the witches? Very well. I will teach you about my move. First of all, you were stating that the culprit is not among the 18 equals the culprit is a 19th person. So if you use the contrapositive, it ends up like this. In short, the culprit is not a 19th person equals the culprit is one of the 18. Well, yeah, if you can prove that there isn't a 19th person, then yeah. Huh? What do you mean? Only that I've countered your move. Let's try and keep things simple. Runabe, explain. Seems you've made things easy enough for Battler to understand with a cookie in a box analogy. And forgive my presumption. Allow me to explain my earlier example once more. I need to repeat my earlier story about 2 treasure boxes, one of which has a cookie in it. In this situation, you have an 18-person box and a 19-person box. So the cookie represents the culprit. Battler-sama, let's see you open the blue box. We're talking about blue stop signs here. Because the cookie is not there. You have paradoxically proven that, therefore, the cookie is in the 19th person box. Okay? That lets us make an even more paradoxical claim. In other words, if it was first shown that the 19th person box was empty, it would prove at the same time that the cookie is in the 18th person box. Battler-sama played this move in order to avoid having to doubt any of the 18, but it's now been used to prepare an 18-person attack. What the hell? If I go first and prove that the inside of the 19th person box is empty, you'll automatically have to accept that the cookie is in the 18th person box. All I've done is say it the other way around, yes? You don't really have to worry about any of this. They could have skipped 5 minutes of this and just gotten to the point if they wanted. So that move I was so confident in was actually a double-edged sword? That's right. As soon as you played that move and attempted to explain everything with the 19th person, you'd already taken on a risk that you might be forced to accept that the culprit was one of the 18. All Beatrice has to do is one thing, you know? I see. Impulse Raven. So this is a counter technique. Wait, if I really think about it, this counter is really disadvantageous for me. This isn't a cookie we're talking about. If you imagine that the loser treasure chest actually has a bomb in it, it gets even clearer. And there aren't just 2 treasure chests, but 18 plus 1 more for the 19th person. If you think about it as a total 19 boxes, it gets even easier to picture. First off, one of the premises of the human culprit theory is that the bomb will definitely be in one of these boxes. I didn't want to place the bomb in the boxes for any of the 18, so I used the devil's proof, and created the 19th person box so I could throw the bomb in there. Yeah, it makes a lot more sense if he explains like this, honestly. That much was fine, but then Beato struck back. Now, if the contents of the 19th person box are empty, that'll automatically mean that the bomb's in one of the other 18 boxes. If I could examine what's inside all 18 of those boxes, then as long as I can show that the bomb isn't in any of them, I'll be able to safely show that the 18 are innocent. If that were possible, I'd have nothing to fear. However, in reality, that'll be almost absolutely impossible. The police wouldn't come here in this typhoon. We don't have access to scientific investigations or experts or anything. In short, we can't prove anything decisively. It'll be impossible for me to find any proof other than simply gulping down whatever alibis each of the 18 give. That means I personally have to prove their innocence, and I have to do it perfectly. Like by staying with them the whole time, never letting them out of my sight for a second. By doing that, I could probably be sure of that person's innocence, sure that the bomb isn't in their box. However, in practical terms, that'll be impossible. In other words, I'd have to expend an incredible effort just to check the contents of one box. And there are 18 of them. In other words, unless I bound all 18 of them in chains and watch over them, it'd be impossible to prove that all of them have empty boxes. However, Beato only has to open one box, the 19th person box, and show that it's empty to prove that the bomb's in one of the other 18 boxes. Furthermore, there's no need for her to show which of the 18 boxes has the bomb. I've got 18 times more work to do to explain my pet theory than Beatrice does for hers. That's just the rules of the game. You signed up for this. When a devil's proof exists in the world, it takes a vast amount of effort to argue against it, and there are many cases in which it's impossible to do because of the situation. However, Hempel's Raven turns that problem around, and makes it possible to prove things easily. By using Hempel's Raven, various reckless arguments become possible to prove true or false. For example, let's say I make the proposition, all humans except me equal foolish. Normally, I would have to examine all of humanity except myself, and show that they're all foolish. However, in reality, it would be impossible to investigate billions of people. It's just the same sort of effort you'd need to open all 18 boxes. However, by using Hempel's Raven, the contrapositive of that proposition would change it into this. If you, to use your phrase, spin the chessboard around on the claim that all humans except me equals foolish, you would have to do nothing more than prove that not foolish equals me. And what do you think that means? As soon as I know the fact that I am wise, I will be able to show in an instant that every one of the billions of people in the human race is foolish. In less than a second, I can finish proving that the entire human race is more foolish than me. Sure. It truly is the strongest and fastest QED in the world, this Hempel's Raven. But what a ridiculous argument. It is a very, very convenient move. Not only demons, but gods also use it. When they propose that the blessed equals the servants of a god, the contrapositive is a human is not a servant of a god equals he must not be blessed. So in order to prove that servants of gods are blessed with divine protection, they only have to bring ill fortune down upon those people who don't receive such protection. So, by bringing misfortune down upon those who don't believe in them, they prove their blessedness. An enormous cost is required to give humans happiness. However, it takes a lot less to bring humans misfortune. So, by using Hempel's Raven, gods are actually giving believers the joy of divine protection for cheap. Yeah, I see that argument. That one makes sense. You demon. It's a demon's argument. That's crazy. It seems we've gone off topic. Let us get back to the point. The move from my counterattack is complete. And now, in response to your claim of the 19th person is the culprit, therefore the 18 are innocent, which doesn't exist, I say, therefore, if I can prove that the culprit is not some 19th person, we can be sure that the culprit is either one of the 18 or a witch, right? Here it comes. Soon. For a while, I just stood there, shocked, completely forgetting to close my mouth. Just when I thought I'd countered one of their strong points, their counterattack had been this reckless argument that I couldn't possibly have anticipated. Is this going to be impossible after all? To continue denying the witch on an island with no more than 18 people, and still believe in the innocence of those 18 people? Is that just a delusion? Am I just trying to escape reality? Kinda. Like, did he really think it was going to be this easy? Not yet. Don't give up this desperate struggle yet. Who cares about whoever's Raven? They're just trying to confuse me by bringing up weird bits of trivia. I use the devil's proof. Don't feel uncertain about something you've used once. Believe in the spirit you've drawn, and then forcefully gouge it in. Time to bring up the Monty Hall problem. We're still in the opening part of the game. Do you plan to keep thinking on this level? Ah, wait a sec. I want to be sure. I'll admit I talked about a 19th person to keep it simple, but if we're going to use the devil's proof to raise the number of people over 18, then we'd have no way if there were 10 people, 100 people, or an indeterminate amount of people. There's always one more than you assume. Get it? Okay, hold on. I want to go pee. I'll be right back, then we'll keep going. I'll be able to read with full focus. Okay. Let's continue. There's always more than one. Always one more than you assume. Get it? They countered my twisted logic with something even more twisted. So the only thing that could counter that would be even crazier twisted logic. Maybe Patchouli has a twin sister. I don't know, Brooklyn 99, sorry. I see. Even if I somehow prove an alibi for the 19th person, as soon as I do, you will think of a 20th person, and claim that they are the culprit. By repeating this endlessly, you would make it so I kept searching for their alibis for all eternity. I see. Just like a demon king summoning a plague of locusts, I wouldn't expect anything less from Kindo's grandchild. Looks like you have been gifted with a talent in summoning. In short, it's impossible to always prove an alibi for each person X outside of the first 18. How do you like that, Beatle? Now that I know we're having a battle with twisted logic, I won't lose. How foolish. What do you think I am? I am the Endless Witch. The thought that you could challenge me endlessly is just absurd. Endless control, that it means that I am able to kill endlessly. When your 19th person folds, you'll summon a 20th. And when your 20th person folds, you'll summon a 21st. And when your 20th person folds and your 22nd person folds, you'll summon a 23rd person. A 34th person. A number too big to read, th person. I don't know how many numbers there are there, so I don't know how to start. Did you think you'd have me at your mercy for all eternity? I laugh at infinite regrets. The infinite doesn't work against me. Well then, how will you kill my endless? Just try and show me. I have the power to speak the truth in red. We have to add that. Okay, I've added it to the red text. Very important that we know this. Because it's in red, it's true. Here it comes. When I speak in red, it will contain absolutely no illusions. If I say once in red that there are no more than 100 people on this island, you will no longer be permitted to create a 101st person. See, battler, what truth shall I tell in red this time? Or shall I strike for the kill and force you into hopelessness? Come, show me your usual frightened face. What's she gonna do then? What? Hehehe. Why are you laughing? I wonder what kind of creepy look I had in my face as I laughed right then. That red sure is scary. Every time it jumps out, I'm driven into the depths of hopelessness. But I've already realized something. There's no need to be overly afraid of the red. You brought out your trump card again. So, how and for what will Beatrice summon use the red this time? Oh? What do you mean by that? Suddenly looking so relaxed. Sorry, but I was waiting for you to take out that blood red treasured sword of yours. Let's see, what do you proclaim red this time? You aren't going to say the culprit was one of those 18 people, are you? Be careful, since that means self-destruction for you, right? That'd be the same as throwing away your own witch theory yourself. The complete resignation. That's right. The red wasn't always a weapon that worked in Beatrice's favor alone. It was the other way around. If she used it the wrong way, it was dangerous enough that she could bring about her own death. If she used it carelessly and said something that ended up denying herself, that'd be exactly the same as self-destructing. Of course, it'd be sad and difficult for me to accept if you told me in red that one of the 18 was the culprit. No matter who the culprit actually was, I definitely have to deal with some tough emotions. But before that, it would mean your defeat. Saying in red that the culprit is a human is equivalent to your proclamation of resignation. If you wanted us to finish each other off in a simultaneous clash, I'd say that's a pretty interesting move. However, this particular battle will end in my victory. Beatrice's red was her true trump card. When that person speaks in red, it's definitely the truth. And no amount of proof or counter-arguments can change that. Until now, she's used it to severely wound me, and each time, the tiny foundation supporting my heart gets split in half. However, if she uses it carelessly, then I can also glean a little information about the truth. In the last game, I used that to my advantage, especially during the chapel's closed room trick, and almost completely got her boxed in at one point. But she was pretty sly herself. She learned from experience, and since then, she started using discretion in the timing of her red. But we barely gotten any red all this time. Beatrice only gave us one line. We got one from Belphegor too. All of our red so far is all the doors that is the Kenjima, none has a crack through which a key can slip. And then Beatrice just says, I have the power to speak the truth in red. Thanks, Beatrice. Good to know. This feeling of tension was almost literally like a battle with real swords. This is a high-level intellectual battle. No, not an intellectual battle. This really is twisted logic. This was the world's craziest and worst battle of twisted logic. Okay, now it's time to hear your plan. That's right. To use your Hempel's Raven, first you'll have to confirm in red how many humans there are other than the 18. And after that, if you proclaim in red that none of the people in this group are the culprit, that's right, that may be a fatal wound to me. I'm surprised that you no longer have even an atom of fear for the red, which once terrified you so much. You're quite resilient. Try taking it out. That treasured sword, that trump card of yours. This time you might be able to make me surrender with a single stroke, right? Interesting. I wouldn't have it any other way. Agitator. Challenge her. Drive her into a corner to make her speak in red. Of course her red's always wiping out my only rays of hope. But don't be afraid of that. On this island overcome with falsehoods and illusions, the only thing I can trust is the information she speaks in red. It's my only way across the chasm of hell. Just a single tightrope. The merciless blood-red blade is the only way I can survive. This isn't just walking on a tightrope. It's like literally walking on the edge of a blade. Of course I'm afraid. Because my victory condition is that I don't allow witches. Then, to use her contrapositive logic, the culprit must be human. But I didn't want to search for a culprit mid the 18. That's what made me stick to a weak position, since I had to claim both that it couldn't be a witch, and that it couldn't be one of the 18. Last time, I wasn't able to understand that, so that's why she hit me, leaving me tattered and defeated. But that's okay. Let her hit me. Let her attack. No problem. Someone said it once in an old sword-fighting movie, that a good fortress has one, and only one, intentionally weak point. The enemy would gather there. They would be lured there. And that would be where the actual battle took place. As long as I understood my weak points, as long as she wanted to attack those weak points, it was as if I were luring her into launching an attack there. Gauge the distance between us with care, retreating step by step. Make them move forward. The more she recklessly flourished that red, the more chances I would get to strike back. Don't be afraid of the red. Keep her cornered, so they shall have no choice but to refute me with a red. No matter how oppressively she speaks in red, that's right, that red itself is the same as fresh blood leaking from her wounds. So, what's wrong? First of all, why don't you tell me how many people are on this island total? If you don't, your raven can't cut me up. How surprising that you can be this desperate and yet this difficult. One cannot make light of someone putting their life on the line, no matter what they are. It's no surprise you're Kinzo's grandchild. The more cornered you are, the bolder you become. Hehehe. What have I cleared his throat? It appears to be a stalemate. That black tea I worked so hard to make is getting cold, my lady. Runabe, who was supposed to be our ally, roguishly rushed her into making her next move. Bieto probably thought she'd managed to smile back and appear competent, but she couldn't hide the sweat building up on her forehead. By now, she'd completely lost the confident feeling that had allowed her to turn up her nose at her worthless opponent. Of course, she probably wouldn't be cornered by something like this. She's just being cautious. Until now, I've been inexperienced. I didn't know how to fight, and I wasn't strong enough to be her opponent. However, now that we've reached the third game, she's realized that I'm starting to become more skilled, and she's grown more cautious, thinking every move over carefully. Sure, that's just fine, Beatrice. Sorry to keep you waiting. Are you happy now? Now it's starting to get interesting, huh? Hehehe. Battler. Oh, the tension. This isn't getting us anyway. Then, should we get to the heart of the matter and go with the usual? Oh, the usual, you say? Then by all means. If I don't hear you say that, I guess I just won't feel like starting. The first move was mine. Here I go, Beato. Repeat it. On this island, there are only 18 people. If I hear you say this in red, I'll have no choice but to suspect one of the 18. I'll be able to say a 19th person did it, so all doors will be closed to me. However, I believe the culprit definitely isn't one of the 18. There's no way any of those 18 could commit such brutal murders. I'll say it again. Repeat it. On this island, there are only 18 people. I refuse. I won't say why. Whew. I'd avoided what would have been the worst red for me. If she'd repeated that, I'd be faced with those two worst choices of accepting the witch or suspecting one of the 18. Like last time all over again. But Beato hadn't proclaimed my ultimate and greatest weakness in red. She refused to repeat it, even though there was no reason for her not to strike. Even though it was a weakness she should have been drooling at. She didn't slice me up with red by using that move, which should have been as good as forking a rook and a king. This was a big sign of my advantage. That's right. The culprit isn't one of the 18. I don't suspect anyone. And since the culprit isn't a witch either, It means the 19th person exists on this island. And that's you. A person who, as grandfather's mistress of 30 years, has been secretly living in a hidden mansion in the forest for a long, long time. The human Beatrice. That's right. You aren't a witch or anything like it. You're just a human who's been living on this island in hiding for several decades. Did you just call me, the endless witch who has lived for over 1,000 years, a human? For a while, Beatrice continued to laugh unpleasantly and gloatingly, maybe spitefully. Are you ready? I'll keep going. Again, repeat it. There are 19 people or more on this island. Beatrice fell silent once again. She'd probably remain extremely cautious as long as confirming the number of humans on this island might give her some large disadvantage, depending on the situation. The red has already become a foothold for my counterattacks. Now that we know this, it makes the red very risky for the witch. But if she couldn't repeat this, her Hempel's Raven wouldn't be effective. To break my devil's proof, she would need to settle the existence and number of people outside the 18 in red. That's right, she couldn't break the existence of a 19th person unless she used red. I've closed Beato in, giving her no choice but to speak in red. There really is a way to fight in this witch's game. It's okay to refuse. If you can't say it in red, that means there's a total of 18 plus X people on this island. The X is a pretty massive piece to lose in your first move, right? After all, from now on, all the tricks that were impossible for the 18 can be explained with a human X who isn't in that group. This huge piece can break open all the rooms you said were closed because everyone had an alibi. It's just like how a chess bishop can cut a thin line through enemy forces as long as there's a slight gap. It could only be effectively used on squares of the same color, but it was very good at controlling territory on the board. Looked like Beato also noticed her current plight. She couldn't just let an important piece go, especially this close to the beginning of the game. If she pulled out a red treasured sword, it wouldn't be that difficult to save herself from this, but Beato was completely aware that it was expecting it. She was afraid that a careless red truth might end up strangling her own neck, because, in the first place, a witch is something that ought to be denied in red. Believe, don't doubt, witches don't exist. Something like that couldn't exist in this world. They can only exist in the valleys between truths. They have a fragile existence curled up in these cracks, frantically trying to protect themselves from the brutal winds of truth, and they can only barely exist like a mirage by surviving on falsehoods and illusions. In other words, the red, which only witches can use, is the reality that might easily deny their very being. The more they brandish their red words, the more they begin to lose bit by bit that crack in truth inside which they can endure. That's why they don't want to use red words and carelessly lose that crack in truth, which is based on fuzzy information. Or illusions, in other words. It's because they understand that they're gradually being cornered. Of course, that bastard will never admit it. Because if she did, it'd be the same as admitting that she's something that can't exist in this world, like an imaginary number. Don't be afraid. Stay strong. I know that she's the one who's really been pierced to the bone. After all, her red treasured sword can't be used with a lot of preparation. What's wrong? I can't believe Umineko ends here. That war wins. I'll say it again. Repeat it. There are 19 people or more on this island. Beatrice is thinking. I refuse. At the end of Beato's worrying, she took a single deep breath and quietly announced her refusal. I thought she'd use it, but Beato refused to speak in red, even though it would cost her victory in the opening part of the game. You refused? Which means that, from now on, I can create as many fictional character X's outside of the 18 as I want? Do as you wish. I refuse to repeat what you have told me. Isn't that enough for now? The reason for my refusal is... No, I won't tell you yet. Anyway, you'll know soon enough. Hehe. Still acting tough, I see. Choosing not to use the red is another way of using it. You called it my red treasured sword. A pleasant metaphor. I will use it too. A treasured sword is at its best when it is sheathed. In fact, there are times it can instill even more fear because it is sheathed. That's right. As I fight, I always have to keep in mind whether you might spin everything around with those red words. It's some pretty serious pressure. And there are also times when you make things pretty tough by refusing to repeat after me. Those times, I can't tell if you can't repeat because my guess was right, or if you're just misleading me and letting me ponder about. If you think of it that way, yeah, it's a sheathed treasure sword. So what? If I'm going to push you off a cliff anyway, best to let you climb a bit higher first. We have still barely begun. Much is left to come. I'll resign from this challenge. Go and get drunk on your faint victory for now, but only for now. I love these scenes. All the meta scenes are the absolute best. That's what I live for. I think the music just looped at a really inopportune time. Made it sound like there was more that was going to happen. Practically speaking, the early part of the game ended with her being a sore loser. Even so, I couldn't relax my guard at all. That tension didn't fade one bit, until I was greeted by the sound of Runabay's applause. Spectacular battler song. Perhaps you have started this game with an advantageous development. Who knows? I still don't know whether I've taken a piece by my move, or whether she guided me into taking it. After all, knowing you probably know I'm being led into a trap. That clapping is just you mocking me openly, right? How could you think that? I am innocently celebrating your ability, which has enabled you to take one shot at my lady, even though it is only the first round. In any event, Melody is a person who is quick to become arrogant. I believe that a little encouragement such as this can be good medicine every once in a while. This butler of yours shares a vicious tongue. He does, doesn't he? Sometimes he ticks me off as well. My, how incredibly rude of me. Well then, my lady, Battler-sama, how would you like some more black tea? The game is still barely begun. Please allow me to prepare all the tea and snacks needed to adorn this game. I ask that you continue your game without any reservations. I will. Let's move forward. Now is when it really starts. Very well. Let us advance the clock. Runaway, black tea, please. Certainly. How about a cookie? I don't need one. Give it to Beelzebub to keep her happy. Remain silent for now. While listening to the sound of the demon butler pouring tea, the witch closed her eyes slightly and fell silent. For some time, she was deeply lost in thought, but eventually a roguish glint came into her eyes. Very well. Why don't I inform you now as to why you refused to speak in red during that first move? What? Bring it on. Show me what you've got. Yes, that piece really was big enough that I'd hate to lose it. It may be hasty, but allow me to make my move. I'll use the red, but from here on, Rosa will explain on my behalf. Listen. Oh boy. This is gonna take a bit. Of course, I think the same way. Rosa does too, right? Rosa? Huh? Sorry. Me too. I think that too. What's wrong, Rosa-san? You've been really quiet for a while now. You feeling sick? In the beginning, Rosa had never been one to cut in on the siblings' fights, but even so, she seemed unmotivated, and had said almost nothing during this night's conference. The whole time, she had hung her head, and appeared to be thinking of something else. You've been in a daze for a while now. Do you think you can protect the inheritance like that? You're also the mother of your child, so get a stronger hold on yourself. I'm sorry. Did you wake up really early in the morning? If you feel sick, you shouldn't overdo it. The beds in our guest rooms have been prepared. How about taking a rest? I'll guide you. No, I'm fine. Thank you. What is it? Is there something you're worrying about? No, not really. Is that so? Feels like your mind has been elsewhere this whole time. I wonder if that has anything to do with what we've been talking about. At those words, everyone stared at Rosa together. As a response, Rosa's shoulders quivered. Apparently, Kiria's guess hadn't been wrong. Rosa couldn't deny it either. No, She swallowed whatever it was she'd been trying to say and went silent again. Of course, the other siblings also began to realize that something about her appearance was different from usual. What is it? You've been weird for a while. Did you think of something? We all just swore to remain united, didn't we? Don't hold back, worried by yourself. We said we'd talk. Rosa, tell us. The men pressed her one after another, and Rosa confessed, resignedly and nervously. The atmosphere made it seem as though she was confessing to some modest prank, which had inadvertently brought about a serious situation. No, this mistress of grandfather's, this Beatrice. I was wondering if she's still alive. Huh? Isn't it obvious that she's alive? After all, she was able to send that letter to us. Whether she's in good health or not is a different story, though. The one in that portrait must be getting up there in age by now. I'd say she's healthy. People who are crafty when it comes to money stay healthy no matter how old they get. Her evil plan might even be the best rejuvenating agent. Wah. She shouldn't be alive. Huh? What did you just say? Beatrice is dead. I killed her. Okay. We have some important backstory, so listen up. What did you just say? What do you mean, Rosa? But it wasn't really me who killed her. Though I did bring her to a place like that. No, I did kill her after all. I tried to make myself believe it was a dream, but it wasn't really a dream, was it? Which makes this a letter from Beatrice's ghost. Wah! It was so sudden that everyone was lost for words. Rosa kept on talking, unable to stop, holding her head as her hair flew all about. Calm yourself, Rosa-san. I have absolutely no clue what's going on. Already dead? What do you mean? I think it means two things. First, its literal meaning. And second, it backs up our earlier guess. Which means Rosa has met with Beatrice, right? I've never heard Rosa mention anything like this. Rosa, when was it? When could you possibly have met Beatrice? Long ago. Long ago. We just moved over to the island and I was still young. It wasn't my fault. It's not like I killed her. Calm down. Nobody's blaming you for anything, right? First, drink some water. Okay? Natsu-san, the pitcher, please. Yes. Here you go, Rosa-san. Please calm yourself. Start telling the story. Until Rosa was able to calm her ragged breathing, no one was able to speak a word. This part's gonna take a little bit once we start up here. The spam DM on Twitter. Great. Cool. Love those. Okay. Beatrice, I've been calling to you for some time now. Did you not hear me? Were you? My apologies. I was lost in thought. Forgive me. The weather is pleasant. Yes, I can understand how the weather is still in your heart. Will you have your black tea here? Who am I? I will bring some tea now. Wait here for a while. Forget about the tea. Talk with me. Very well. Kinzo would use the excuse of getting black tea to try and interrupt the conversation for the time being. But his attempt had been very transparent. I sat in a garden chair and beckoned Kinzo to do the same. Kinzo sat down heavily, exaggerating his age. For a while, we sat and appreciated the silence. Who am I? Until today, no one has answered this question. For some reason, everyone averts their gaze and evades me. I have known you for a long time. I think you as my best friend, even as a father. This is why I want so much for you to tell me. You should know who I am. Why are you worried about something like that? You're Beatrice, the master of this mansion. Is that not so? What more could you want to know? I do not know. What's this? Don't you even understand what it is you want to know? I'm mysterious. In one's youth, there are times one wants to play in the maze of thought that has no exit. Perhaps that's what your worries are. Kinzo laughed as though it was a trivial matter. However, I couldn't help but feel that this behavior was another attempt to force me to stop any further questioning. So you won't tell me after all. There is nothing to tell. You are Beatrice. Isn't that more than enough? No, that's not it. What I wish to know is not my name. I want to know who I am. Who am I? What am I? How long have I been here, and how long have I have to continue my days here? I really should bring some black tea. Don't you think it a waste of all this fine weather? What's all this about? Looks like it's probably the story of your past, right? Something like that. You'd think I would go this far back. Looks like you had some pretty deep worries even then, wondering who you were. That is to be expected. At the time, I wasn't able to understand who I was, or why I was alive. Well, in puberty, everyone's captured by those philosophical worries at least once, wondering what meaning there is in their life. Doesn't this just prove that you had a charming period like that at one point? I'd been in that mansion since the time of my birth, and I lived only inside the mansion. Of course, I went out into the garden, but the area around the mansion was surrounded by a very tall fence. I wasn't able to leave through it, and I was told severely that I mustn't leave. I could walk freely through the mansion and the garden, but outside of that, not once was my desire to take one step outside of my own accord granted. What do you mean by that? Are you trying to say that, as far back as you can remember, you were always a bird in a cage? That's what I thought at the time. After all, as soon as I became aware, I was living like that. I didn't even think to question it. Who in the world are you? That's it? That is what I also hope to know. Heh. I'm sure you'll say something like, I wasn't a human, I was a witch, right? No, that's not true. That isn't true yet. Or should I say that was once the case. I was constructed by Kinzo, a human built by a human. Or perhaps I should call it a cage made of flesh. What the hell? This is getting weird. You probably won't believe it anyway, but listen first. I was a mighty witch who would live for 1,000 years, but at one point I was summoned by Kinzo, and by the hidden arts I was bound as his prisoner for eternity. Never heard that before. Probably here in the Ushimura family, you were summoned by grandfather, made something like a devil's contract with him, and gave him the gold. Indeed, that is correct. Then I was supposed to vanish until the contract was complete. But, well, popular women have it rough. By some turn of events, Kinzo fell in love with me. Grandfather's nearsightedness must have gotten pretty bad. With astigmatism too, to fall in love with you of all things. Well, to me, there could be nothing more bothersome. However, the power of humans is a frightening thing. He displayed that fearsome power and rooted me to this place. He said I wouldn't be freed until I nodded my head in agreement. Such an overbearing man. Isn't that awesome? Everyone knew grandfather was obsessed with the occult, but who would have guessed he had the power to root down the great witch Beatrice? Ha, ridiculous. Who would believe such a weird story? As I thought, you don't believe. I believe is the fact that you lived in this hidden mansion in the middle of the forest. You're the 19th person on Arkenjima, right? Indeed. Just as you imagine, this is deep within the forest of Arkenjima. A hidden mansion not to be found from the outside world. Its name is Kudorian, 9 Birds Retreat. Come to think of it, I heard the guest house's real name was Torayan, Visitor's Retreat. See, the naming sense is similar. So you were grandfather's mistress who lived here in secret. Isn't that right? Mistress isn't the right way to say it. You should probably call it Kinzo's unrequited love. I spoke of it just now, correct? He fell in love with me of his own accord. He then courted me, but I rejected him. Then I was shut up in this hidden mansion. No, that's not quite right. It would be more correct to say that I was shut up in this body. I've got no idea what you said at the end there. You will just make fun of it and refuse to listen, right? After all, you say you don't believe in witches or magic. If you have no use to hear what I tell you, saying it would be the pinnacle of foolishness. I'll decide whether I believe it or not. After all, if I don't ask, the story won't continue. Tell me, let's hear the story from your past. Very well. I refused Kinzo when he courted me, but he was not a man to lose heart at something like that. He wanted to make me nod my head in agreement no matter what. He shut me up in this mansion and spent an eternity trying to win my heart. Talk about overbearing. Guess someone likes obstinate men, huh? Regardless of whether I responded to his courting or not, having a man so desperate for me was, well, as a woman, it wasn't so unpleasant. However, I never accepted his proposal. I tried to find some way to break through his guard, but that barrier was firm and I couldn't crack it. And then, after trying to resist in various ways, I eventually reached the conclusion that, to escape from Kinzo's barrier, I would have to throw away this body of flesh. The physical body is a vessel with many restrictions for a magic user. Throw away your body of flesh? What does that mean? Something like an out-of-body experience? Well, if you want to think of it that way. However, I am no spirit. Even though I'm a witch, in the beginning, I was born with a human's body of flesh. So for me, throwing away that physical body, well, it didn't mean the same thing as death, it did require a similar level of resolve. So in other words, you decided that you couldn't be released except by suicide. Is that it? It wasn't suicide. It was nothing more than throwing away my body of flesh. Of course, becoming nothing more than soul is a precarious situation. When the soul leaves its body of flesh, it is constantly exposed to the strong winds of the sun. It's not easy for me to maintain myself and avoid being scattered by them. It was a final measure that I wanted to avoid if I could. However, there was no other way to break through Kinzo's barrier. Anyway, I am an unfettered person. I couldn't stand being kept in a cage until Kinzo's life was over. I couldn't see this stuff Beato kept going on about being... Let me start over. I couldn't see this stuff Beato kept going on about throwing away her body of flesh, as anything more than suicide. Grandfather persistently courted her, and to escape from that, she chose her own death. So you're saying you committed suicide? What are you talking about? Isn't that you, sitting carefree there in the garden chair? That's right. That is the new cage I was given by Kinzo. Cage? You mean this mansion? No, I mean my body, waxing in the garden chair over there. Even though I was so desperate to escape that I became naught but a soul, Kinzo still had no intention of letting me go. Oh, he was a fearsome person. Normally, when the object of one's unrequited love shows that she is willing to die, it should be enough to bring that person to their senses, even if their love has lasted 100 years. Perhaps that's why even he managed to become a sorcerer of sorts. Don't try to confuse me with the incomprehensible witch girl talk. What exactly are you trying to say? That Kinzo didn't let me escape even after I became a soul. Human emotions are terrifying. To think he would be able to exhibit such power. Tying that a dead soul is not something that can be accomplished easily, not even for a magician who specializes in such matters. Because I knew this, Kinzo's fearful magical power shocked me for the first time. Then, Kinzo seized my soul and brought me back. However, a cage to hold a sea soul cannot be made from iron or lead. Only one thing remained. What? You aren't going to say it was a magical cage or something, are you? Wrong. It's the body of flesh over there, just like yours or mine. Only a cage made of flesh and blood can tie a soul down to this world. Kinzo shut my soul in a cage of flesh built to be exactly like me. So to sum up, it's like this. Grandfather obstinately courted you, you started to hate it, and you committed suicide. But you weren't clever enough to finish the job? Damn, you only took a roundabout way to say something like that. No, that's wrong. My soul was shut up in the seed of a homunculus. I was born out of a test tube. Huh? That's crazy. That isn't even possible, right? Kinzo accomplished even the miracle of creating life, and simply to shut my soul up in that cage. That he would show such magical power simply because of his own love. A thoroughly terrifying person. It's already gotten pretty ridiculous. Say whatever you want. I don't believe anything. Just do what you like. What's with this unpleasant attitude? Heh. In the beginning, I showed a little interest, thinking there might be some huge hint in here. But the more I ask, the weirder the story starts to get. I get the feeling that even though this is supposed to be a game about denying witches, I'm suddenly being forced to swallow the story about witches. Come on, hon. Cool. Sorry, but I don't feel like listening to this anymore. Just keep rambling on to yourself as much as you want. I'll be over here, picking my earwax or something. She looked actually sad there. When I started acting cold, Beato seemed unusually discouraged. Of course, her expression was still shameless. But in that really easy-to-understand expression of hers, I had the feeling I was able to catch a glimpse of loneliness in my failure to find the story of her past interesting. No, hon. It's back. For some reason, that subtle reaction made her seem pitiful, so even though I kept my careless attitude, I decided to cover her slightly. Damn it, even though she's an irritating witch, I'm still against her because her chromosome are XX. Starting to fall for... Well, I've got absolutely no desire to believe you, but keep going. Let's have a bit of a story instead of a tea snack. So you treat the story of my past like little more than a snack. Do you expect me to just casually tell you when you insult me like that? After I made fun of her, Beato reacted a little sensitively. Looked like, even though making fun of people was her specialty, she was horrible at being made fun of by others. Just then, my black teacup suddenly made a sound, surprising me. My lady's soul was seized and breathed into a cage of new life. In other words, my lady received life as a human once more. Before I realized it, the demon butler had taken my cup and was adding more black tea to it. Runaway, enough of that. This person just said it was too ridiculous to be worth listening to. Well, he's too ridiculous to even be worth talking to. I'm baking some new cookies right now. Until they're ready, I thought you might find the story of my lady's past to be a perfect substitute for a snack. Cuckoo. Didn't I say that's enough talking about me? Such unpleasant people, a lot of you. I'm leaving. Runaway, serve her food and then go. No pointless chit-chat with Balor. Certainly. I will make an effort. Sure you will. Beato's short temper peculiar to women, which I didn't really understand, took hold of her, and she turned her body into gold butterflies, scattered, and disappeared. After that, only Runaway and the scent of the black tea were left. I feel kinda bad, like I pissed her off or something. As long as you're aware of it yourself, I need say nothing more. Wait a sec. Weren't you the one who struck the finishing blow? Cuckoo. Why, what could you mean by that? How would you like some sugar and milk? Just milk will be fine. And some tea snacks would be nice too. Well, it'll be a bit longer before the cookies are ready. Didn't you say we've already got something to use in place of a snack? Certainly. If you will listen quietly, I will continue the story. Oh, Runaway. She'd said something about a homunculus. I know a bit about that. It's that thing, right? A manufactured human created with alchemy or something? Yes. My lady's soul was shut up in a homunculus, and she was revived into this world, receiving life again as a baby. However, because she was a baby, any professions of love on Kinzo's part would have been quite useless. You aren't saying that grandfather shut that baby up in this hidden mansion, until it grew to reach the same age she'd been? Correct. That is what I am saying. However, while her soul was the same, a human spirit is strongly influenced by its container. My lady lost all her memories of the past and grew up as a very normal human girl. And you're saying that's the Beato sitting in the garden chair? Yes, that is correct. It grew to be completely identical. However, it did not possess her power as a witch. My lady was completely human. Beato, who was sitting in the garden chair, looking up at the sky, voiced that same question again. She asked who she was. The meaning of those words was finally starting to click. She couldn't understand why she was living here, all locked up. Grandfather had seized Beatrice's soul, shut up in a body of flesh, and then shut that up in a hidden mansion. However, since she'd lived here since the time of her birth, she couldn't even understand who she was, or why she lived shut up in there. It's really interesting looking back on this, after, knowing everything. How much of this is literal and how much of this is figurative. Wait. Who would take such a stupid story seriously? Why don't I change my interpretation? In other words, couldn't it be something like this? Grandfather met Beatrice. He then fell in love with her and courted her, but she didn't accept it. Then, he flew into a rage and shut her up inside this hidden mansion. Beatrice tried to escape, but no matter what she did, she couldn't succeed. So she finally chose her own death. And then, no. Maybe there was a girl who looked just like Beatrice. No, a baby. Grandfather raised this child with care, but maybe he didn't view this child as his daughter. The soul was once again shut up in a cage of flesh. Those words probably meant that he didn't view this kid as her child, but as her reincarnation. Maybe that's what it meant. If you interpret it that way, even a story this weird might make little sense. No. This might be some bullshit Beato cooked up to confuse me. As if I could accept any of this. In the first place, who Dodian was it? There's no proof whatsoever that a hidden mansion actually existed. Wouldn't this be something she just fabricated on the spot? Here it is. Let's add that. Finally have some more red. A hidden mansion named Dorian does exist in the forest of Akenjima. Signed, Ronove. It's been added. That is the place we were just talking about. Huh? Red? Ronove used the red to say that Quidonian actually existed. Oh, I typed it wrong. Oh yeah, I said called, my bad. Sure. Fixed. I can't read. Did that mean the same thing as the red Beato used? I may not look it, but I'm a demon. I mean, Belphegor used red at the start of this. So assuming... I mean, why is Battler so surprised? She said the thing about the keys. There's no cracks in the door that keys can slip through. I may not look it, but I am a demon. Please keep this a secret from my lady, yes? Sure. Beato, who knew I would try to trip her up, had grown extremely cautious when using red. To think that Runabe could also use the red. However, it was the red of a crafty man. I didn't know how far I could accept it, but anyway, I might be able to get some kind of hint out of it. So that Beato relaxing in the garden of Quidorian and that conversation she had with grandfather were the truth? Yes, it is the truth. In the past, the pair actually had a conversation like that in this place. Okay, let's see here. Runabe. Pair actually had a conversation like that in this place. Referring to Beatrice and Kinzo in the courtyard of Quidorian. Okay. We're just gonna have to keep that part in notes. I don't have any way to change the color or anything, just deal with it. Thanks a lot. I'll ask for some more red. You said she was born from a homunculus. Does that kind of unscientific magical thing actually exist? I am unable to answer that question. After all, doing so would cause a stalemate. Stalemate? What does that mean? It's a chess term referring to a state in which, similar to a perpetual check, any further progress in a game becomes impossible. This would be the opposite of an endless repetition of moves, because all moves would disappear, and it would bring about a kind of deadlock. In chess, this would lead to a draw, just as a perpetual check would. However, there can be no draws in this game between you and my lady. Therefore, I'm unable to answer a question that would bring about a stalemate. In other words, Beatrice can't just say in red whiches exist, basically. It's that kind of thing. You obviously want to confuse me by saying incomprehensible stuff. You simply put, you're trying to dodge the question, because you can't use the red to say that something magical like homunculus exists, right? If I were to say in red that a witch exists, what would you do, Ballor-sama? Whether or not I believe that is what our whole fight's about, right? If I was told that point blank, it'd be game over. If I said a witch exists in red, you would have no room for argument. However, since the reason would have never been made clear to you, Ballor-sama, you probably wouldn't accept it. However, after being told that in red, you would have no room for argument, and would not have been shown any proof. In this situation, even though you wouldn't be able to admit defeat, you would have no way to make a counter-argument, and it would become a deadlock. Even though checkmate would have not have been reached, there would be no existing moves left. Since you would not be able to play a United's hand, it would never become My Lady's turn, and the game would stop there for all eternity. As a result, My Lady would be unable to force you to submit. That would be a deadlock situation. In order to avoid that, I am able to answer questions of this nature in red. So, to say it quickly, you're saying point blank, questions are prohibited. Well, that's true, I guess. If I were told a witch exists, I'd have to give up from the start. I'm pleased that you understand. I believe we might be able to work together if you ask your questions in a different form. Can you help me with that line Beatrice dodged when I told her to repeat it? About the number of people on this island? If My Lady held back on repeating it, then of course I cannot respond. As My Lady's furniture, I am unable to be too forward. Renove made an exaggerated gesture, trying to act like a loyal retainer. This guy is so shameless. Heh. Just when I thought you might actually be useful. I'll give up on that and search for a different question. That's right. I was forgetting to check something important. This is a story about Beato's memories, right? When did it happen? It couldn't be happening right now, right? Correct. This is the world of 1967. Renove. This is the world of 1967. Oh, yep. The world of 19 years previous. Same as above. Okay, added. Let's try rearranging the story again. I think what I'll do is every time I turn on the BRB screen, I'll just turn on red truths so people can review them. Makes sense. Let's try rearranging the story again. I wonder if it could be something like this. Grandfather fell in unrequited love with a person called Beatrice. Then, he confined her in this hidden mansion and continued to court her. But she was stubborn and didn't give in. Eventually, she grew pessimistic about being able to escape from here, and probably committed suicide. And then, her soul was put in a homunculus, and no, if I accept that, it's the same as accepting the witch. I can interpret that part like this. She probably had a posthumous daughter. Grandfather must have believed that her soul had been placed in a new physical body, and might have thought that child was the reincarnation of Beatrice. That means, at least 19 years ago, Beato existed in this island as the 19th person. I'm starting to get confused. Either way, we can't do more than speculate. The only thing we can say for sure in red is that in 1967, in a hidden mansion on Rakenjima, Beatrice existed as a human. That's all. That is correct. In 1907, in a hidden mansion on Rakenjima, Beatrice-sama existed as a human. Let's just put that in there too. Renove. In 1967, in a hidden mansion on Rakenjima, Beatrice-sama existed as a human. Oh, thank you. That really helps. Congratulations. With this, you have made clear the existence of the piece known as the 19th person. A 19th human for you to blame, just as you longed for. A sacrificial sheep upon which you can shift the blame of any crime. How amusing that it happens to be My Lady. Cuckoo. One of you laughed indiscreetly. Somehow, I didn't like how he put that, so I didn't feel like laughing along with him. That's right. There's that thing Aunt Rosa said. Beatrice is dead? I killed her? What does that mean? As for that, it may be faster to see the actual circumstances rather than listen to me tell you. Let us advance the clock a little more. Renove pulled a stylish pocket watch from his pocket and touched the watch stem. As soon as he did, I saw gold butterflies gather behind his back and take the form of a person. Was it Beato? I quickly realized that it was someone else. It was her. That oldest sister of the Seven Stakes, who loved tormenting me more than 3 meals a day. If I don't consider myself lucky to see that sexy ass, I won't be able to keep up with her torture game. Renove-san. So, you're still here. This is an urgent call from Beatrice-sama. My. What kind of urgent business could it be? It seems my chat with Ballor-sama has run a tad long. Well then, Battle-sama, if you'll excuse me. Please continue to enjoy your game with my lady. Yeah, I'll enjoy it as best as I can. Because my conversations go a lot more smoothly when they're with you as opposed to her. And you're more gracious with the red, too. Come and talk again anytime you like. Battle-sama, despite how I look, I'm my lady's furniture. I can do nothing that my lady does not desire. What I said in red was something that normally should have come from my lady's mouth. I did nothing more than announce the red truth in my lady's place as she sulked. So she really was sulking then. Hehehe. Cuckoo. Seeing me and Runabe incomprehensibly hitting it off, Steak Nae-chan cocked her head curiously. Runabe-sama, we are keeping Beatrice-sama waiting. Let us hurry. Yes, I shall go immediately. Well, Butler-sama, I will see you later. It appears that we have finally started getting along. As I thought, I have the feeling we'll manage to become good friends. Huh? Sure, if you mean partners are gossiping behind Beto's back. Runabe-sama. Yes, if you'll excuse me. Maybe she didn't like seeing Max so friendly with me, or maybe she really had been told to hurry. When the Steak Nation let out a thunderous cry, Runabe laughed frivolously and disappeared as if running away. Why am I, the oldest sister of the seven stakes of purgatory, being summoned for menial tasks like this? Even though Beata-sama could have sold one of the younger sisters who look like they've got nothing better to do. Sheesh. Why so grumpy, Nae-chan? If you're hungry, eat a cookie or something. Why don't I give you the last one? Hee. How thoughtful. Then, shall I take one? I casually pushed the snack plate with the last remaining cookie over to her. Thank you. As though coming as a period at the end of the sentence, a sharp sound pierced the table. The nails on 3 of her fingers extended, grew sharp, and pierced the space between my fingers and the hand that was pushing the plate, missing them by a hair's breadth. It happened in an instant, so for a while, I didn't realize that her fingernails had grown. The tips of those sharp nails were like blades with a red manicure. The spaces between the bases of my fingers hurt sharply. Those razor-like blades had been plunged into the table a hair's breadth away from the back of my hand and my fingers. Because of those 3 blades, I was able to even let my careless right hand tremble, and by now, all I could do was let a bead of cold sweat drip down. Whoa. Nae-chan, isn't it about time you cut your nails? It's Lucifer. That is my glorious name. The honored furniture who serves Beatrice-sama, and the oldest sister of the 7 stakes of purgatory. I'm not like my disgraceful younger sisters. If you don't show proper respect, you will regret it. And why would I regret it exactly? Can't really think of a reason. Stupid kid. Do you really want to play with me that much? Was it that unforgettable? I'll thrust my stake deep into you and let you enjoy being gouged to the fullest, okay? Damn it. Someday I'll have you down on the floor and say the same thing. Oh really? Wow, I can't wait. Yeah. Haha. And then they had their fun. I wanted to initially get through this part with Rosa and the Beatrice backstory, but it's probably going to take another hour. So I think I'm going to wrap up here and play Cataclysm after all.